Now, everybody knows that the most important part of a structure is its foundation. If its foundation is faulty, if its foundation is bad, if its foundation is weak, then the rest of the structure is also going to be compromised. And so when we begin to look at that and recognize that, we recognize a very strong biblical truth. And that very strong biblical truth is the fact that Jesus is our foundation. In fact, He is the foundation that the wise man built his house upon, and the storms came and the wind blew and everything came against it, but it stayed secure and it stayed strong. We also understand that Jesus is the chief cornerstone of the church. Jesus is the foundation of the church. Jesus is the foundation that the church is built upon. He's the foundation that our individual lives are built upon. He is the foundation that the very church is built upon. And He is the firm foundation, and He is not compromised in any way, shape, or form. He is absolute power in every single way, shape, and form, and we can absolutely place our faith and our trust in Him and in Him alone. So when we begin to look at that, we begin to recognize what is being talked about right here in Proverbs chapter 13 and verse 14. It says, the teaching of the wise. Okay, the teaching of the who? The teaching of the wise is a foundation of life. So the teaching of the wise is a foundation of the wise. And so the teaching of the wise is a foundation of life, it says right here. So when we begin to look at that, if we're going to be wise and we're going to teach, we're going to instruct, we're going to lead others, then it's going to have to be rooted in wisdom, and it's going to have to be set up on a firm foundation. And so what is that firm foundation? That firm foundation is Jesus Christ. So if we're going to teach, if we're going to preach, if we're going to instruct, if we're going to lead, if we're going to say, hey, follow me, guess what? Everything that we are doing ought to point to. It ought to point to the person of Jesus Christ, to rest your life on the person of Jesus Christ, to place your faith on the person of Jesus Christ. That and that alone is wise teaching. Everything that we do, everything that we teach, everything that we point towards and even lean towards ought to point to the person of Jesus Christ. And when we do that, that is wise teaching, because that wise teaching leads them to the firm foundation and leads them to life. The teaching of the wise is a foundation of life, and it is not a foundation of life. Jesus is the foundation of life. The rest of that verse continues on. It says to turn aside from the snares of death. Everything else is snares of death. Every other path is a pathway that leads to death. Jesus Christ is the only foundation of life. Jesus Christ is the only path to life. And so, friends, everything that we do ought to point people to Jesus. If we're going to be wise, if we're going to walk in wisdom, and we're going to instruct others, even in the way we live and the way we conduct ourselves. You see, far too many people say, well, I'm just going to live a good life and let people see that. Well, if they don't know that you're living a good life for Jesus, they're going to think, well, that guy's a Christian. All I have to do is live a good life because he's living a good life. No, it needs to point them to Jesus Christ and the fact that they need to put their faith and their trust in the person of Jesus Christ. Every other pathway is a snare of death. Jesus is the only foundation of life.